Even if it means trading up. We said we're not talking about trading up, but we'll toss it out here for this one. Who's your first round pick for the Steelers?
If we're talking about want, it's Andrew
want.
Booth.
Keyword.
It's Andrew Booth from Clemson for me. I wrote an article earlier this week, one that I'd been holding off writing just because I was, trying to let the process play out. But for me, I'm big on Andrew Booth, man. I think if he was allowed to test and wasn't dealing with his injuries during the pre-draft process, that he would be going like top 10. I'm firmly a believer in that. What makes Booth's fit in Pittsburgh so intriguing, though, is like they're going to play a lot of zone defense next year because I don't think they have the personnel on the boundary to play man. But Booth played in a really zone-heavy scheme in Clemson. He's a guy that's an extremely freaky, reactive athlete. Pittsburgh requires their cornerbacks to play the run very well, and that's something that Booth does an excellent job of. Coming downhill, reading, crack replace, just being aggressive in that aspect of the game. So I think he's my favorite. And like also, if the Steelers want to move to a more man-heavy scheme, I think Booth's an even better fit there. So I'm bullish on Booth as far as like an NFL prospect. He is. I mean, he played in a zone-heavy scheme at Clemson, Alex. But I think if you look at his man-to-man reps, like you can tell just with his athleticism and really his footwork, that's what sets Booth apart from like your average first-round cornerback. I don't want to say like generational because I feel like we use that word too much, but like he is elite footwork for a corner. His ability to use his feet and stay in his pedal without like declaring and opening up his hips too early, like it's teach tape stuff. So like he's a guy that can play in press, he can play in off coverage. He really can do whatever it is you want your corners to do. And like I don't use NFL comparisons very often just because I always feel like they just don't make a ton of sense. But one that came to my mind when I was watching Booth is like Trey White. Trey White's his own corner. He plays in Buffalo. But they can do a lot of the same things. They play exactly the same. If you watch Trey White in press coverage when he's playing man-to-man and you watch Andrew Booth, it looks exactly the same stance, the same footwork, the same motor technique, mirror. I mean, it's really good stuff. And I'm really, really confident that he's going to be a very good NFL player.
Yeah, Booth is a dude you've turned me on to a long time ago. I feel really good about him. Just want to address this real quick. Hey, this is what we're here to break rules. Okay. So you want us to break rules. You tell us to break rules. We'll go do it for you. Always. We appreciate you. My guy is on the offensive side of the ball. And just to keep it somewhat realistic, it would be Jamison Williams. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, I love Deontay Johnson, and I think he is a wide receiver one. I'm a little eerie still on Chase Claypool, but I think that Jamison Williams is a dude that if he didn't tear his ACL and wasn't going through this rehab process would be a lock for wide receiver one. And I think he just has that type of talent. It's a new day and age. ACLs are not career ending. Chances are he's going to come back better than he was before the injury. And that's just a dude that no matter how the Steelers quarterback direction goes for the next 3 or 4 years, he's a dude that makes it that much better. If you have Mitchell Trubisky in there, people say all the time, like, oh, well, he ruined Allen Robinson. Like, yeah, he did, but Allen Robinson also like did a lot to make Mitchell Trubisky as best as he can possibly play. And I think that no matter who's out there right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have like that guy. There were times where Landry Jones was on the field and like you could tell he was just terrible. And Antonio Brown, even though he wasn't having 10 catches a game, was still having 5 and like turning them into something. And I think that Jamison Williams is a guy that you just put out there. You feel confident in him all the time. He's a generational talent at wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah. And at least from a speed perspective. I mean,
at least from a speed perspective.
That dude, I mean, there's players that are fast at the receiver position, and then there's like guys like Jamison Williams. I mean, Williams is just an absolutely ridiculous athlete who really dictates the way defenses have to play him. I mean, if you're going to give him a free release off the line of scrimmage, it's game over. And like a lot of the times, like you saw Alabama, like there's been that clip that's been rolling around Twitter the last couple of weeks where they'll put Williams in the slot to get him away from press coverage and just send him up the field. And if he gets even on you, he's leaving. So it's over. Like at that point, it's over. Like all you got to do is just throw it up because there's nobody in a secondary, even at the NFL level, there's only going to be a handful of players that can run with Jamison Williams step for step, stride
That's
for
what I'm
stride.
saying.
And that's why I said like he's a player that dictates the way that defenses will have to play you because you're not going to be able to just throw any regular starting corner out there on him. Now, granted, like the one thing with Williams that I will say like he has to improve at early on, it could be a struggle is just against press coverage because he's taller, like he is like 6'1", but he's really thin. He's got that lean frame. So he does struggle like when guys, like when I noticed when corners were able to get their hands on his chest, like it kind of knocked him off balance a little bit. So he's going to have to learn how to play through contact and like beat press coverage, but you can hide him early on. Like you can put him in the slot, you can put him at the Z, motion him away from press and get him those free releases, and he's still going to be able to have a big impact.
Yeah, and he'll put on weight. The NFL bulks you up, and it bulks you up very quick. So I'm not that those things are never a big concern for me.